Hey there. Welcome to our first installment of what we're calling for now Scary Stories with
With
Landlord
Landlord
Gurus.
Gurus.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some issues that just sort of are top of mind. Today's is going to be something that Eli's had to deal with or is currently dealing with at the moment that, you might consider a not so fun story, or in some cases, they may be even like nightmare type scenarios with their properties. Yeah, we'll just get right down into it. I know that Eli, you've been dealing with some topics that have to do with roommates in a rental
Yep.
property recently. So maybe you can tell us what that's all about.
Yeah. This story has to do with roommates and a dishwasher. So, uh, first off, most stories in my life of landlording are not scary. This is not no horror story exactly, but it's not fun, like Chris said. So, essentially, about 3 years ago, I got a maintenance request. I had a property manager at the time, and I got a maintenance request that the dishwasher wasn't working. I chimed in and said, "Hey, that's an old dishwasher. Let's replace it." So we did that. A year and a half later, the dishwasher was broken. Still had a property manager. They fixed it at basically the same cost as putting a whole new one in. And then again, just recently, I got a request saying it wasn't draining. I am managing the property now. I called out a vendor that I had a referral from. So there's a takeaway. Find referrals from people that you know to do work. It's
Is it a
much cheaper than
plumber or a handy person or
this is an appliance repair
okay,
person.
yeah, good.
So they came out and they found that the air gap where the little chrome guy that sits on top of the sink had a bunch of food and in fact, fish bones crammed in there. So
Bones.
yeah,
Yeah.
fish bones, which then everything else hung up on, right?
Right.
So then it just clogs that up. That's where the water from the dishwasher goes to get to the drain. And it couldn't go anywhere because it had accumulated and clogged. So
And this is the same
essentially,
tenant. This is the same tenant that you had from 3 years ago when you originally replaced the dishwasher.
okay, yeah, good point. One of the tenants is the same. This is a situation where there has been roommate turnover, and we'll do another episode of our landlording A to Z on processes for moving in and moving out our roommates because it's super important. And I do follow a process. I screen new roommates as if they're new tenants, and I use a roommate addendum to remove the outgoing tenant and place a new tenant on the lease so that you always have the people that are living in the unit on the lease. That's super important. That's today's biggest takeaway, really.
So by removing the tenant who's the roommate who's left, then
Right.
does that sort of take them off of any responsibility going forward?
Yeah, they no longer have the privileges. They don't get to live there or the responsibilities. They don't have to pay or be held responsible anymore for,
Right.
you know,
And in practice, that makes sense because you may not be able to go back to that old roommate and find out, if you needed to collect something or get them to be responsible for something. Who knows where they are?
exactly. And that's the scenario here, and all I know is that the dishwasher is inoperable and I've had to pay to have it fixed because of misuse.
Right.
So because I've used the proper forms and gone through the proper process, it's very clear who is responsible to pay for damage that it was due to misuse. So that's not on me. That's not an ancient dishwasher or a faulty installation or something else. This is a case, and we'll do an episode on this as well, is when the damage can and should be billed to the tenants.
Right. And in
So
this case, the appliance repair person, they could identify that this is definitely misuse, that somebody was using the dishwasher in a way that was not supposed to be used by basically washing fish bones through it.
Yep, right. And this comes up for me most often where it comes down to plumbing, clogged drains, where somebody's been cramming broccoli down the garbage disposal and it's just a big wad, or not using a screen on the sink or the tub and long hair clogs drains. Again, that's user caused. So those are expenses that a tenant can and should be billed for. So I usually will work with people and we did repair it a year and a half ago. I don't know exactly what happened then. I suspect that was also misuse, but that's water under the bridge and can't go back there. This is clear. I have a picture of fish bones. And to fast forward to the scenario, now we have the diagnosis. It's been fixed. I paid for it. And I go to my tenants and say, hey, this happened because food what was going into the dishwasher that shouldn't have been going into the dishwasher, and so I'd like you please to reimburse me for this expense. Well, their response is they don't like that. They don't want to pay for it. Understandably, I wouldn't have either. But their response is, well, that wasn't us. That was the past tenant. I know and have documented with the roommate forms is that these are the responsible parties. They're the people who currently live there. And it's a good lesson for me to enforce that with roommates who are staying, is that, you are now the responsible party. You're signing to release this person from their responsibility, as am I. So all parties are signing the roommate addendum.
Right.
So
So
that's what
they're claiming that the misuse was by a former roommate who is now gone. But
which could be true.
could be true, but one of the roommates who was there when that supposedly happened is still there on the lease then, right? So it's a continuation of a roommate. It's not completely new tenants, I guess is my point.
Exactly. Yeah, not completely new tenants. And the remaining roommate stated that they saw the prior roommate basically misusing the dishwasher. But that is old news at this point.
Right.
So at any rate, I don't have a happy ending to this story yet. This is still a horror story because we haven't resolved it all yet. I've had to pay. We're working it out. It's become contentious. Maybe we'll come back and I'll let you know how this works out in the end. The tenant has said that they're going to contact a lawyer because they think that this is a bogus claim. When in doubt, I don't bill tenants unless it's really clear that it's misuse. I don't bill tenants for
right. If it's regular wear and tear,
or any doubt.
Yeah.
Any doubt. But how many people have come before and used this dishwasher that's 15 years old? There's a lot that goes into that. This is really clear. It's a brand new dishwasher. I've got a gross picture of bones and crud.
Right.
And the old roommate moved out 6 months ago too. And it wasn't clogged then. So
right.
The people who live there when that happens are the people that are responsible.
Yeah.
So
what do we have to learn from this? What's our takeaway?
Yeah, always use the proper forms, make it official who's supposed to be living in the unit, and make it clear that that's who is responsible for paying rent and all the other obligations, and have good vendors that you have a relationship with. So I made a point of finding somebody that had been somewhat vetted to be the appliance repair person. And then also when I dispatched them, I said, hey, will you please let me know what you find there? And I also do that with drain cleaning folks, and they're fairly used to doing that type of thing. And it's sometimes good to have a third party, kind of an unbiased party who will give that opinion, because they don't have.
And if you can document that from a third party, that this is what the third party says,
right?
That this is misuse versus wear.
Right. Yep.
No, those are good points.
And we'll come back. Maybe we'll do another episode on how and when to bill a tenant, because it's not simple. Essentially, I've provided an invoice, which is unpaid. There are issues around whether or not you can. I had Turbo Tenant property management software platform that I use set so that it would not accept new payments until old payments were made, which in most places I think is not allowed. And I double checked in Oregon. This is in Oregon, and that's not allowed. So I hadn't intentionally set it that way. I think it must have been a default. So I went back and I changed that so that the tenant can remain current on rent. This is not yet, at least this is not a scenario where it's an eviction proceeding that's starting, but it remains to be seen how it'll work out, whether or not it'll get paid or it'll come out of a deposit at the end of a tenancy. My lease says that any unpaid fees have a 5% interest applied to any unpaid amount every 30 days.
Right.
So right now that's what's happening. But the issue is, even if I let that sit, then, if it's a long-term thing, then there's not very much security deposit left at the end if other damage has been done. So,
right. Yeah. Ideally, you want to resolve this and get that reimbursed as quickly as possible. And another good point that you sort of alluded to is that, roommate addendums refer to the original lease that binds the parties in the rental. And so with using a good lease, and I know that you have done so, will outline the responsibilities of the tenant as well as the landlord in rental.
yeah.
So, and one of those is, taking care of the property to a reasonable extent. So, which would mean not misusing the dishwasher and taking care of it and using it properly. So, and I think, that another thing that you sort of alluded to is, and maybe a good thing in practice to do, is when you get that new roommates that come in, it's a good time to kind of reset with all tenants involved. Like, okay, here's what's happening. The roommate who's moving out, they're absolved of anything going forward, and the roommates coming in and the existing roommate, this is still your responsibility if anything does happen. Moving forward. So, trying to be taken care of up front and everybody on the same page. up front.
Exactly. Yeah. And roommates really should understand that they're in a contract with each other as much as they are in a contract with the landlord. Because if you're an individual that's named on a lease, you generally speaking, you're responsible for any failure to comply with that lease. So if somebody takes off and moves to Costa Rica and is gone, your roommate abandons the place, you're on the hook, and that's not fair. But it's important to be careful about who you select as roommates as well,
Exactly.
because you can be fully responsible.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, well, I don't know, Chris, what didn't we cover? That story in progress. We'll come
Yeah,
back.
yeah, circle back and find out what happens to this tale.
Yeah, and we didn't mention, please like, follow, subscribe. If you subscribe to this channel, you'll get notifications when we put out new episodes. Share it with your friends, and let us know in comments here if you have any questions or ideas for content, or
Your
maybe
own scary
your own.
stories of your own that,
Right. Yeah.
share.
Maybe we'll have you as a guest
Exactly.
at Landlord Gurus Horror Story Time.
All
Okay.
right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for sharing your story, Elon.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody.